And sorry, Dan, we kind of got behind with our last gentleman, but
all pays the same. It all pays the same.
all right. Well, good. I like your attitude. Oh, and I want to start off by thanking your department, EMS, emergency management, sheriff's office. Is a rough, long weekend, but it sounds like everything was handled properly, and we did a good job, made it through. So make sure to thank all your men.
Okay.
How long did they have to sit out on the roads?
They were, I don't remember, they started like 10 in the morning, some of them, and I think we were out there till 7 o'clock at night.
Was that an agreement just between you and Cody, or you guys just do it out of the goodness of your heart?
The state called and asked if anybody to man it, so I started asking
There you
people
go.
if anybody wanted to man it.
KDOT call you?
Yeah, they won't man their barricades, so.
Well, we ran into that problem many years ago, and then due to lack of manpower, we couldn't now there was just no way 2 or 3 guys could man that thing on a 24-hour basis.
Right. Even then it goes from, we're manning it, and as soon as you quit manning it, everybody's driving out there anyway.
Sure.
We were out at 2 in the morning picking people up
Sure,
out of the ditch.
and that's the way it's always been. But I was just curious on how you guys got involved with that process.
Yeah. They ask and we go.
Okay.
Okay. On that explosion-proof thing, it was Max Air that we bought. The shipping come out to be a lot higher than that guy told me it was going to be. So just wanted to get you guys up to snuff on that. It was almost $500 to ship it. So, which is a split cost between you and the city, so it don't look quite as bad. But
Right.
I just want to bring you up on that. On the grant, I had to do a little talking, but I got them to let us go ahead and file the grant because we're not actually NIMS compliant right now. And it's one of the requirements, but I told them we would be within 6 months.
So you got to get all your guys through the NIMS programs.
Yeah.
And they were okay with it?
And then I was just going to bring this up again because I don't know where we're really at on it. Them brush trucks are still wandering all over the road. In fact, I got guys getting mad at me over it, and I'm like, I don't know how we're going to trade off trucks with 12,000 miles on them.
What's the basic problem?
It feels like you're on ice all the time. They're doing this as they go down the road.
Suspension problem?
I've had them to Yoast. I've had
I
them to
think it's a
Anders.
tank problem. Your tanks and you're with your tank and your springs in it. The wheat truck same way.
I think even if we dump the water, we're getting it. That's what they're saying.
Can you get a baffled tank?
They are baffled.
And it's still doing that. That's odd.
It is odd.
When I talked to other guys with same-year trucks, say they're having the same problem. So
I always figured the wheat trucks it was because they has unbaffled tanks, but
I guess I'm more bringing it up to put it on record that I have told you guys if something does happen.
well, you can put it on record. I said, I'm sorry, but I don't know what we can do about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The tires are all right.
We put them on new.
Tires.
Last year or 2 years ago, we put them on new.
Was it doing it before you put the new tires on it?
They've done them ever since we got them.
They're getting worse.
I wonder what the basic problem is.
Those are the first response trucks?
The 2 small trucks.
Can you drop the spring hangers in the back any on your shackles, or is there any room left?
I don't know. We'd have to
I'd
look.
try that, because that way your center of gravity be a little lower. That might help. If they got room enough, for a shackle where you can drop them down.
That one truck put heavier springs under it, and it helped a little bit, but it's still an issue.
Well, I'm thinking if there's center
You
of
say there's
gravity.
other,
I know Brock McAtee has that dump truck that's the same year as those trucks. He says it does the same thing.
so
So
it's
it's
a problem with Ford.
I don't know if it's, I'm guessing.
Well, the sad thing would be, even if we would agree to replace one, who's to say they're not going to have the same problem
Exactly.
with a brand new truck? So I think it's just something we're going to have to overcome somehow. I wonder if a body and alignment place or could give some tips on, geez, I don't know.
Go to a scale and weigh each axle, the front one and the back one, and see how much difference there is in it.
The back's 10.5 and the front's about 5,000.
Okay, but have your springs under the front and then drop the one in the back down. And that should change your center of gravity back to where it needs to be.
Well,
If you can get heavier front springs, but your Fords are pretty easy change out.
Okay.
we'll just have to keep thinking on this one.
Okay.
Have you talked to anybody that's come up with a solution?
Like I said, I've had them everywhere. And Yost, Cooper.
And other departments with the same years having the same problem.
Well, just other. I know Ross Manufacturing has that well truck. They said it does that. Brock McAtee has that dump truck. They said it does it. And they've all been the same year.
What year are they?
2005. Either 5s or 6s.
Or 5, and they got 12,000 miles on them?
One has 11,000, one has 12,000.
Really?
Which that one, we had said has bent frame. I kind of expected a little bit, but they've lined it up the best they can. So
God, I hate these guys out there in a potentially unsafe vehicle, but don't really know what to do about it.
yeah,
Wonder if we shouldn't be contacting Ford somehow.
I think that'd be appropriate. Say, hey, we've got some issues here.
I mean, we got, emergency equipment that's not safe.
All the other fire departments have the same problem.
I haven't really talked. I don't know if anybody has the same year around this area. I haven't seen any the same year. Now, Bird City says theirs isn't that bad. They don't notice it.
Real. Same year?
They were all 3 made at the same time by the same person.
Maybe it's just difference in the tires. What brand of tires, see what they got for tires.
Go over and get Bird City to trade with them.
Okay.
That ain't gonna work.
Now you're
That ain't gonna work.
now you're getting me in trouble.
Next.
So, anyway,
I
just
can get in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
just something to think about. And, if you come up with
I
any
don't think it
ideas.
would hurt to contact Ford and say,
I think we ought to contact Ford.
they too.
Well, that's why originally
Safety
we took them back there thinking, but they seem to think they can't find anything wrong with them.
Yeah, but you're just dealing with a dealer.
Right.
I think we ought to deal with Ford.
They might have a recall on them or something.
Need to deal with Ford.
Guess I'll see you in your office.
Surely there's a statewide system that everybody can read shared emails and questions, that kind of thing. I know law enforcement has one.
There's cases for like law enforcement and I don't know if fire is on.
Well, I just wondered if we could canvass other departments and say, ask them if they had the same trouble, and if so, what they do to remedy it.
There ought to be some channel we could go through.
I think so too.
We'll keep investigating it and see what we
Alright.
come up with. The 2 forestry trucks that we got up here, one's our tanker, the other one's that 6x6. We actually got the titles for them, so they're now ours.
Good.
Other than the only thing it says, as long as they're in service, they have to be made available for them under emergency situation. Other than that, they're ours. So. The only thing I was going to bring up is maybe one of these years when Cody's upgrading pickups, we could upgrade ours and sell that one. Just putting my name in on it if that
Yeah.
ever comes available.
Yeah. Get with Cody. He's got a timeline down when he's going to turn these things over.
Okay.
So, yeah. That'd work.
Okay. That's really all I have, unless you guys have something for me.
I don't know what it'd be, Dan.
Okay.
Just keep up the good work and keep hoping for moisture.
All right. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, Reed.
Maybe we should start with the last item, ambulance to repair, huh, since we're on that topic.
Yeah, might as well.
Under old business, assistant director position, any progress made there? Or decisions or anything?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're all kind of struggling with both these programs, the rural health one and the heart and
Stroke.
stroke one. How they wound up with EMS and not the hospital.
So they are with, the rural healthcare is with the hospital. And the hospital basically is contracting EMS to provide those services. So that's how that paperwork goes,
Okay.
to allow us to have somebody to help us do transfers. It's kind of why it landed under EMS hands, is to help EMS a little bit. And that position's went on a few calls, but it hasn't materialized to help EMS like what we were hoping for.
Okay.
The heart and stroke, I don't think that has anything to do with the hospital, if I remember right. I think that's directly with the county.
Well, as you know, some of the funding trails have kind of gotten blurred as far as where they're at and how much is in it. And until we can get all those questions answered and settled, we're not going to make a decision on this assistant thing. We just don't know where you're at with your budget and where these funds are coming in, where they're going out. We don't know. I know there was lots of conversations last week that it looks to me like you need to sit down with Dolores and Carol and get all these monies identified in line items is what it sounds to me like what needs to be done.
And Carol kept really good records because, it's a federal grant, so we had to report back that way. So that's, I believe, I would have to talk to her, but I believe the county was tracking things, you can kind of think of it as in a macro way, and then she was keeping track of things at the line item because there wasn't enough line items that the county was keeping track of, and we had to track things more for the grant.
Well, somehow...
But I think all those, I think all that's there.
Somehow... I don't know.
From what I understand, the federal funding is gone, and it is operating on private funds.
Correct.
And in September, there was an email that you provided whereby Carol provided the amount that was still left in the account to be being used.
Mm-hmm.
You provided a statement showing a balance in the account. However, if you look at that statement, there were no disbursements. And so therein lies the question in regards to what exactly is the status of the rural health and the heart and stroke, because in the information provided thus far, we haven't seen any expenditures to know exactly where those accounts are at.
And all the expenditures are payroll expenses? And I don't see any of that. I mean, I don't have any way to get that. I mean, it's not like contractual or commodities where I would see that. It's all just been payroll. So that was my question, is payroll right
but the thing-
taken out of those accounts?
But the thing of it is, Reed, is as we were discussing last week, because EMS has assumed the responsibility for these two positions, and you are the department head of EMS, there is a duty there to know exactly what is going on in regards to these programs and where those accounts are at.
So somebody needs to provide me with payroll data. And that's why I asked Scott, are these county funds or grant funds? And he said county funds. And I was like, when did that change? Because that's all supposed to be taken out of the grant funds. That $150,000 that's remaining, that should be where everybody's getting paid from. And it has been up until when Carol resigned, I know that.
Well, obviously.
I don't have the information is what I'm trying to say to give you because it's payroll.
But in regards to, like Wendy's position, you're submitting the hours to be reimbursed, correct?
Yes. I submit the hours and I keep track of the hours I submit and then the check comes to me and I keep track of that, yes.
And then in regards to Tammy's position, that's a set amount every month, correct?
Yeah, I don't bill that one. I mean, it's not reimbursed. It's just whatever her salary is, that's what they're paying for. Out of that $150,000 basically savings account. That should be dwindling whatever her benefits and her payroll, her salary is.
And that's why we're asking that, you coordinate with Dolores and Carol to make sure that those are in place, that is happening. Because of the information that's been provided. The printout that you got last week, it only shows a balance and it doesn't show any disbursements. Because
Okay, well, isn't Scott in charge of payroll? Shouldn't he be able to tell us? I mean, can't you tell us where their funds are coming out of, what account?
120 is where Tammy's is coming out of.
And what's 120?
That's EMS.
Basically, it's not coming out of the funds you
That's
got,
what
it's
I'm
coming out
wondering.
of your budget.
But I don't have that information is what I'm trying to say.
Who does? Who would?
That's what I'm
You don't have
asking
that much
Scott.
budget either.
What's that?
I say you probably don't have that much budget either, so you need to get it figured out so it comes out of the right account.
Well,
Until somebody can tell me up here where that money's coming out of, I can't fix anything.
see,
Well, their pay is coming out of 120. Now, whether they're supposed to be a monthly transfer or whatever, I don't know. This was set up before I was here.
Okay, and this was all held by a previous position. We all know that.
sounds
So
like
is
me
Carol
with-
still on payroll up here?
Just for keeping track of her
Oh, yeah.
grants.
For-
And what are her grants?
Whatever she did when she was here.
Because that should include this program then.
It sounds to me like we just need to have a conversation with Carol and Dolores if possible, and just identify where all this stuff is and where it should be and how it's supposed to be done.
Right, but what it boils down to is that this is your department, this is your budget, and the way in which it is working, is your budget going to work if the transfers that are supposed to be being made are not being made? Because this is your responsibility, this is your department, these are people under your department.
Okay, I did
Okay.
not know that the grant funds, which I get no reports from, is my responsibility. I get all the reports for EMS. I get no reports for these grants. That was all done by Carol. The Healthcare Task Force appointed Carol to take care of all of this. When Carol resigned, like I put in the email, those responsibilities were never reassigned by the board and that position was not rehired. So how does that become my problem? I mean, that's I mean, another position in the county had this responsibility. Now, if you guys would have came to me and said, hey, we're not rehiring Carol's position, all this falls on you, that would be one thing.
But is it not EMS who took responsibility for these positions?
EMS took the responsibility when they asked, yes, to supervise these positions because we thought it was going to help the taxpayer. So if Carol's still on payroll, that's the big question. I'll just tell her, I'll have a conversation with her and say, hey, you still need to do what you were doing before. Case closed. I mean, do I have that authority? Because I'm not her supervisor. That's emergency management that was.
As the department head, you should know. You should be keeping track of this.
What, Ryan?
That was
those
Carol's.
employees.
I don't get a payroll report from you.
Have you ever asked for one?
The grant position reported.
I asked you if those were coming from county funds or from the grant, and you said county funds.
Well,
That's not the way this was
120
set
is
up.
county funds. Because in the case of Wendy,
What has changed here?
We are paying her, you submit that, they reimburse us. That means it's county funds until
And
we
I
get
keep
that
track of
money.
that totally, to the penny. I keep track of that. That goes through my QuickBooks. Again, we keep another set of records besides the counties, so I can track that. Wendy's is a reimbursement grant.
Correct.
Tammy's is not.
She is getting paid with county funds until that money comes back in.
Okay, I have never done a transfer between these programs. If there was transfers done, I'm assuming Carol did those, and I don't know that.
Well,
But
we
if
just-
Carol's on payroll, we just bring her back here.
We just need to have some
And
more
get it done.
conversations that include her, because obviously she has the answers to.
Yeah,
our
that was
questions.
what she was appointed to do.
So we can probably leave this at that. We need to have better conversations between the departments involved here and include Carol to see, and especially Dolores, and see where these funds are and then move on forward from there.
I mean, if they were coming out of my department, I should have been substantially over budget last year. Because that's
But you
That's
you report them on
$100,000.
your payroll sheets every month, so you know what they're getting paid.
Yeah, I know what they're getting paid. I don't know what account they're coming out of. Because according to the personnel line item of EMS, they're not in there. So I don't know where they're coming from. But you said EMS, it's not in that line item that I see. There's got to be another report that you can create that's going to show, or you can go look up to say, where is this person getting paid from? That's the big question. I don't have access to your system, Scott. I don't know. I mean, is this something we need to ask CIC about?
I'm sure Dolores, I'm sure it was set up to be paid out of you, then reimbursed back to EMS.
And all the records that Carol said she brought up here, where are those?
I have no idea.
Okay. Because we don't even have her stuff. She said she brought it up here because it was the understanding at the time the clerk was going to take over that position, then all that switched. But that's not going to give us any information past when she resigned her position.
But she's still being employed to track her grant.
I don't know that. That's something you all know. That's why I asked. Is she on payroll still? I thought she was done because I don't get anything from her. That was supposed to be a temporary thing, I thought. So you can't hold me accountable for things that I don't have access to, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And either I need access to CIC and I need access to figure this out, or somebody needs to be providing me reports or something.
We can provide you with any report you want.
Okay, well then tell me where her check's coming from, because it's not coming out of EMS. That's all I care about at this point. Tell me where those two
The only thing I can
positions
tell
are
you
getting
right at
funded
the
from.
moment is her checks, both of them, get paid out of EMS. Now, whether there's a transfer done after that, I don't know. I'm not the treasurer.
Okay, could you pull one of those reports? Because the total of what those two are getting paid is more than my whole personnel line item.
Okay,
It's not in there.
Let's move forward. You guys can have this discussion after our regular meeting.
Okay, did you guys have any questions with those binders? Or I know you didn't have time to go through them all. That was a lot of information, but anything come up?
We appreciate the effort to provide us with the information. It wasn't exactly what we was looking for, but it will help. I mean, at least it's someplace to go and look first, and then if we need to, have you explain it. So,
Is there something else I can provide you if that's not what you wanted? Maybe a later date?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. But again, I do appreciate the effort to at least get us the information, because, you know, we talked about this a year or so ago, that we really wanted to see some of these regulations, and
You got them all.
now we have them, so
Except
that's an improvement.
you do not have the Kansas Board of Pharmacy regulations. That's 1,000 pages, and I wasn't going to print it.
Don't want it.
But we are classified as a pharmacy, and we're licensed such as that. So in that binder, there was 2 sections that I felt like we had policies that need to be approved. The HIPAA ones, and then our operational policies. Going forward, how should we get these approved? I guess, A, do you guys agree that you should approve those?
Yes.
And then B, how do you want me to do that?
The head of medical staff, who's the head of,
Dr. Brown's our medical director,
okay.
and she has to approve our medical policies.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Probably needs to start with her.
And she does that every year.
Okay. And then, because we're not qualified to decipher a lot of that stuff. We're just really not. So we're relying on you to make sure that the information is correct and applicable. And then with her approval, I can see us go ahead and approving your operations. And
Because she doesn't approve operations. She just only approves medical.
okay, well, the operations part of it is,
I mean, that's where we set the salaries and the shift bid and all that kind of stuff
Yeah,
that you guys have had questions over.
that's all generated by you. We still don't fully understand your shift bid process. And
Did you read the policy, though?
yeah, kind of. Yes, but to read it and then put it in application, I had a little trouble there. But anyway,
Maybe I could. Okay, the next month we have a shift bid. I'll use that actual numbers as an example.
I'd
Like
love
walk you
that.
through the whole thing.
I'd love that.
This is the text message we put out on this date. This was the replies.
And-
This is what it costs, basically.
And
This the scenario.
I think to start with, that's something that would really help
Okay.
us.
So yeah, think about how you want me to present the policies to get approved. You know, we can do one at a time, but it's going to take us more than a year.
Has this happened in the past? Have you come to the board with those policies in the
No.
past?
Most of those are new. We didn't even have them on. We didn't even have some of these policies.
Okay, and so you designed it and wrote the majority of these policies yourself?
I either wrote or rewrote them. Yes, I would say maybe 50% we had, and I just rewrote them, and the other 50%.
Well, when you get your policy set the way you would like to have them, and Dr. Brown has approved them, I think then is the time to, starting with us, provide them to the county attorney, make sure that she understands them, and then present them to us, and then we'll approve them from there.
Okay, because that's already happened. I mean, Dr. Brown has already approved them,
Okay,
so
so
we're
step
ready
one's
for
over.
you guys. Yeah.
Step one's over. I think Leslie should be able to take a look at those policies and make sure that legally they're solid policies that fit into county.
Does that work? Okay.
And then,
I know the HIPAA ones you already
Right.
approved.
And then, because things like that, we don't know. So start with Leslie and then get the information to us. And then,
And maybe the HIPAA policies don't need to be approved by them.
Well, it's my understanding that
You know,
they are
I don't know.
the chief operator,
They're the owner, yeah.
yeah. And so I think everything needs to be approved.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Oh, new business statistics. January, February, March, the biggest issue I see on our statistics is our accounts receivable is at an all-time high since I became director. We kind of figured that with the hold by Medicare that has been released, but it's at 206,000. I've never seen over 150,000. So over the next few months, that number obviously will go down and insurance payments will definitely pick up. As you can see, we've only received roughly, $4,000 total this year. So, and some of that could have been last year, the year before. Some of this stuff can take forever. There's 116,000 that's out there depending on insurance, and about 14,000 that we're waiting on the patient. And somewhere is collections. Collections is up to almost $70,000. Now that amount, don't hold your breath on too hard, because it seems like I think we're at like 2-point-something% is our rate of return on our collections. So
Well, that's a poor return.
it's bad. It's bad. It makes you wonder if it's worth the paperwork to do, but it is. It is. It has our call volume there and pretty steady. No issues there. Expense is a little high, I would say. Some of that's because we were holding off expenses from last year to this year, but for budget reasons. Any questions about statistics?
You held off expenses from last year to this year?
Like some of our par values that we keep in our inventory, like instead of just one of these things, or maybe we say we're going to stock 3 of these things, right? So at the end of the year, we let that inventory dwindle down, and then we picked it back up at the first of the year. So I thought it was going to help a little more than it did, but.
Just want to say that I misspoke. They are getting paid out of the rural health care fund or the line item.
Okay.
The problem is everything goes in there.
I know.
There's MILA's stuff in there, so that balance doesn't mean that's.
I knew both of our grants are under this one line item, which is.
Is this something we should?
I mean, I can't believe we're doing it this way, but I didn't know
Is this
Mila's
something
was
we-
in there too.
Is this something we should look at, maybe getting back to the hospital? Let them manage both these positions? Because that's how it's done normally.
We can't heart and stroke because it's not a hospital program. We could, we'd have to look at that contract that you signed, but we'd have to look at that, how we can break that contract.
Well, all of the documentation that I have seen in regards to the positions, everything was signed off between the program and the hospital. I haven't seen anything with EMS.
There's one that Brett Pulling signed, I know.
See, we don't,
And that's between the hospital and the county.
Yes, you're right.
But that is through the hospital. It's not through the county. Heart and stroke.
No, the other one. But we can look at that.
I think we should.
From my standpoint, grants need to be tracked individually up here. We can't lump them all together because we get a mess.
And that's what we're saying. We've got that now.
I didn't realize that 150 that's in a rural healthcare grant isn't for our 2 rural healthcare grant programs. You know what I mean? So I don't know where we stand right now. Does Mila?
And that's what we want to find out.
Yeah, we want to get to the bottom too and make sure that were correct.
And that's what Leslie was saying. You need to get with Carol and Dolores and find out where you're at with this.
So what about, is there any others besides this one of Mila's?
Well, there's several miles. I don't know
Really?
what all else is in there.
I mean, I guess the question I would have is, for her, is do you know how much of this money you should have?
Well, I think what it
I mean, that'd be a
also-
start.
Here's what else it boils down to, is there are limited resources in regards to at least Tammy's position, as to the monies that are left.
Right.
And so you definitely need to look into that to see where exactly that fund is and how much is left, because you don't want to all of a sudden go in one day and say, Tammy, you're done. I mean, you've got, you don't want to do that to someone.
Right, and that's
We need to
why,
figure out where this is at, because we are on limited resources, so that Tammy knows what's going down.
and I have
where the
had that
program is,
conversation
and-
with her. I had her, we went through the numbers at the end of the year, and it looked like easily we could fund the position through summer of 2019. Well, I had no idea that this rural healthcare grant fund had other monies in there that might not be ours.
And that's what we're trying to
So
figure out.
Well, that's just what we need to do. We just need to move forward, sort this thing out, make sure everybody's.
But at least they're getting
understands it.
paid from the right fund. I mean, that's huge.
Well, we hope so.
No, that's what you said, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
getting
they
paid
are.
from that. We just don't
wanna
know.
Hope they're getting paid. We just hope it's not county funds.
But you said it wasn't. It's from the rural healthcare grant.
If there's funds there to, you know what I mean? If there's still funds there to pay for them, that's for that. There's other funds in there outside of Wendy and Tammy.
But to date, we can say, correct me if I'm
I
wrong,
think so, yes.
that they've been
I
paid not
think,
by
but
county
I'm not
funds.
Positive.
Okay.
Okay, well,
11A repair. Last thing. I sent you guys an email. It went in for its, we have to get our license renewed every year by April, the end of April. Part of that is we have to have a mechanical inspection on all of our trucks. 11A, the main ambulance in Bird City, they had to put a new radiator in, and after that, when they were changing the transmission fluid, quite a bit of shavings were on the magnet plug, and it was making noise and it was vibrating. And they said that could all be related. They said they didn't have the needed equipment to replace that or to look at it, basically.
and they being Yost.
Yost, yeah, sorry. And then they suggested we take it up to North Platte to Inland Truck. And Larry down at Yost has been working with John at Inland trying to figure out the details. They came up with $1,000 to haul the ambulance up there. That would be paid to Yost. And then Inland said a $4,000 max to fix it if they have to replace the third member in there. It only has 46,000 miles,
That was my next question.
which is really unfortunate. We shouldn't have a rear end going out of that, but
Well, I think at this point in time, repair is, how old is it?
I believe 8 years. But I can get back with you on the actual. I think it was a 2009
And that's the main ambulance?
in Bird City, yeah.
Well, I guess we're fortunate we had the spare we could move over there. Timeline, how long would it be out of service, you think?
Several weeks. I think they said 3 to 5 days to get parts in after they opened it up and seeing what parts they need. But I'm assuming probably 3 weeks before we'd have it back. Once they get in there, they'll give us a more accurate estimate. But the top end is $5,000.
And you don't have a budget for that?
I'll let you know in December. I mean, no, it's not a budgeted expense because it's a breakdown. But, you know, like I said with Wendy's position, if we're good with shift bids and we're not doing a lot of that, that was $5,000 a month. So, you know, we might, but summer's coming up and we shift bid more during the summers and holidays historically, but
Well, I think we're behind the 8 ball here. We probably need to move forward and have this thing repaired.
So what, does it just come out of county general?
no, I would say you take it out of my budget at
And
least
we
until
have
the
to
end of the
transfer at
year.
the end of the year.
I mean,
Do you have
for
any
me, a
equipment
$5,000, yeah, we do a $15,000 transfer every year.
So he does have monies available in equipment reserve, or should have.
And for a year, if nothing else breaks down, 5,000 is not bad
Yeah.
for the EMS. I mean, a $5,000 repair. But no, I take it out of my budget and we'll try to absorb it. I mean, that's what we try to do.
Any more discussion?
No, it's gotta be fixed.
Yeah,
What can we do?
let's go ahead and move forward with that.
What is saving you, man, drive it up there, I mean, if it's still moving, and it ain't gonna get any broke downer than it is. That'd save you $1,000.
Well, I talked to them about that, and I talked to a couple of our EMTs that are a little more mechanically inclined. They seem to say it could be a safety issue if that rear end would lock up while you're driving down the road. That's why we have just parked it and took it out of service, and it's not moving. Because, yeah, I asked that question too. How can broken be more broken on it, you know? And they,
Well, you can also look at it this way, that thing comes apart.
right, that was the other thing.
You're,
Your axle
talking
could
more
be
than-
over in the ditch.
Yeah, you're talking more than $5,000. I
But,
think $1,000 would be pretty cheap insurance to haul that up there.
and maybe we can put a fire truck on it, trailer too, and have them look at that. I don't know.
Okay,
All right, that's all I have. I am gonna talk to Mila and Carol on this grant stuff and report back.
and make sure that you include Scott in that
Yes.
conversation.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Okay,
Task force.
Tom, are you ready?
We are.
We are. Do we want to go ahead and take a Brian?
Oh, that's
We're fine?
right.
Okay, all right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I
we-
forgot about you, Ryan, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can go ahead with the task force.
Okay, what do you have, Tom?
The Long-Term Care Management Task Force met on Wednesday, I guess it was, and we had 6 out of the 9 members were able to make that meeting. It was kind of a short, called under short-term notice. We've been trying to have a second meeting since February and basically locate a consultant that could help us kind of sort through our options. John Grace, who is a consultant that works with the Public Building Commission, Cheyenne County, and he's been working with that task force that then converted into the Public Building Commission since 2015. So he pretty well knows the project in Cheyenne County, and then he has a company that's working in other communities, Smith Center and some of the other communities where they're looking at assisted living and such. And so he was able to attend our meeting, and so we met, and he kind of laid out what he thought some of our options were, and he got a hold of you on Friday.
He did get a hold of me and provided the 3 business structures that the commissioners could consider in regards to the management of the assisted living and the nursing home. Basically what those options boil down to is the first option would be whereby the board would hire an administrator who would then manage the assisted living and the nursing home, but that would all be county funded and handled locally. There would be a 501c3 that would be the corporation that would run it. However, it would all be county funded, county employees, basically, under that structure. Then the next one would be basically the same. However, you would hire a management company to come in and work with the administrator in regards to the day-to-day operations of the assisted living and the nursing home. The final option is that of like what we have now with the Good Samaritan Society, whereby the premises are leased. And the leasing company would handle all of those operations. And it is recommended that it kind of be set up like the hospital, whereby there is a board, so that the commissioners wouldn't have to basically micromanage everything.
Is there not already a board in place for the Good Samaritan Center? Do they not have a board?
Jeff can probably address that. I think since it's a leased hospital, right now there's an advisory board, but they really don't have any authority.
No power.
Yes,
authority.
they're just an advisory.
We've had an advisory board all along.
How many members do you have on that board?
We've 8 right now.
Really?
Yeah. There's a meeting
Do they
tomorrow.
meet in regular sessions, or?
Yeah, we meet once a quarter at Western State Bank.
Okay.
So basically what the task force decided is that before any further steps are taken, they would like the direction of the county commissioners as to which business structure to pursue, so that we aren't wasting efforts with this limited amount of time on all three when we're only going to be choosing one.
He did give us a little background on what's currently going on in Kansas. Basically, he said there's 300 some skilled nursing care facilities in Kansas. He estimated that probably half of them are owned by private for-profit companies, and most of those are outside of Kansas. And then the other half are basically nonprofits. Some are, and that would include the Good Samaritan Society, Presbyterian, Via Christi, some
Leased type agreements.
faith-based units. He did indicate that in the past, counties and cities used to own and manage facilities by themselves, but he said they pretty much have, that is a thing of the past, that the counties and cities aren't.
I can see it with all the regulations and Medicare rules and everything else. It'd be a nightmare. We'd have to create a whole department just to keep track of.
Yeah.
So.
And so, you know, as Leslie said, it really kind of boils down to 3 or maybe 4, because you look at, you know, the other issue is whether you are a managed facility or a leased facility, which would be comparable to what the hospital's leased, but it could be a managed facility, and so you could interchange either one of those. One thing that he did relate to us, he thought that the size of our facility was going to be tough for it to break even and operate in the black, and that it might be very difficult to find a lease or a managed contract where we wouldn't, where the county wouldn't be expected to subsidize operating losses, which I don't know, in your conversation with Mr. Fitzgerald on a conference call, if he indicated that in the future, I mean, if with the new lease with Good Sam, they were expecting that clause that's currently in our lease that the county would subsidize losses,
Yes.
operating losses.
He did mention that,
And obviously, we wouldn't know if any other company might have that clause in their lease, or obviously, if it's a management contract, the county's going to assume any losses. If it's a lease, that would be an issue, and Mr. Grace kind of indicated that he wasn't sure there were any other companies out there that would assume that risk at the size of facility that we have. I think he also indicated that probably at best what we need to focus on as a community is how we can minimize subsidizing any losses in the long-term care facility as well as our hospital. And, you know, that could include memorials that come in, grant applications, those type of things that we can somewhat subsidize some of that loss with.
of course, you're always going to have to be on the lookout for those opportunities.
Yes. So, the other issue is that we didn't have any discussions with him about a contract with him. Right now, he has a contract which the county pays for on a monthly basis. What we may want to look at is possibly amending that contract to include consulting assistance on long-term care management. One of the issues there is that he has a management company, and if we're hiring him as a consultant to provide us with information as to which path we might want to take, if he would present a bid, then that might be considered a conflict of interest. But we felt that we needed to go with his, get some advice from him, because we've been in neutral since February and trying to find some consultants to come out and assist us. And we felt that, you know, he knows this project probably better than...
Sure, and we're familiar with him. We have a certain amount of trust in his...
Right.
So I think that's only appropriate that we kind of look into that.
You know, he did provide us some information, and I think I forwarded it on to Scott. He did give us some sample RFPs, which are a request for proposal, which is it's kind of a template that we could send out to Good Sam, other entities. But I think it comes down to whether you as the commissioners want us to pursue looking at a management leasing company, or if you want to look at setting up an administrator, or and then what kind of entity, what kind of nonprofit do we set up, and what kind of governing board with that.
I think we're about to the point where we're going to have to concentrate on a managed lease type of agreement similar to what we have now. I think that's...
Well, and another thing we have to keep in consideration is the tax lid.
Sure.
And if, we go with a management type situation, then all of those persons, where is that funding going to come from, benefits, et cetera.
And, the other issue, and with the makeup of the task force, I mean, there's individuals, there's employees of the hospital board members, and employees of the nursing home, and just like it was with the hospital employees, when the hospital board started looking at different management company, there that was great concern
Sure.
to the hospital employees in regards to what will that do to our benefits, our retirement plans and such. And I'm sure it's the same issue with,
I'm positive it is the same issue.
Yes.
at Good Samaritan. And if I was employed there, I'd have the same concerns.
and the employee has expressed that's on the board, on this task force, has expressed that concern. So,
Well, it's a valid one.
you know, and so I think, obviously, those are the issues we're going to have to look at.
Well, I think bringing John on as a consultant, it would be almost a must. Get him on, because he has the experience and the knowledge to hopefully get us going in the right direction.
Well, and I'm thinking hopefully we can minimize any additional funding that it would take in the fact that either he or one of his employees of his company is here in Cheyenne County on a monthly basis, sometimes twice a month, actually. So I'm thinking that we could probably amend our consulting contract to add this to it at less cost than it would take to get a different consultant.
I agree. Are you okay with that, Leslie?
Yes.
And, it's also fortunate that we have the county attorney sitting on the task force. When questions like that come up about conflict of interest, you can always look over at Leslie and say, is this going to be an issue that we can't do that?
Right. Well, we'll tackle those as they come. But I think to get started here,
So basically, what the task force is needing is the commission to make a decision which business structure to pursue and make a motion.
what
So
would
that
be
we
the
can-
recommendation of the task force?
Probably number one, huh?
Well, I would say that we probably agreed, we felt that the county commissioners would eliminate a setting where it was county employees, and so we almost lobbed that one off immediately. When it comes to, I'm not sure that we really took a vote, but I would say that it would kind of depend on whether you felt that there should be a nonprofit set up of some sort that would have a board, and that board would they would give direction to either the leasing company or the management company.
So set a board up, kind of like the hospital board down.
Something comparable to that.
Would you want to start over, or would the board that already exists?
Well, they really function. They are a function of Good Samaritan Society. They really they represent residents in the county, but they really don't have any authority. They meet and advise the administrator here but to really have any authority to say you need to do this or we expect that, that's my understanding.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
board
right?
of directors in Sioux Falls, they're the
Yeah,
authority. Advisory board here, just it's advisory.
Real similar to what the hospital has, anyway.
Yeah.
A couple of things I might mention on the side, but according to the terms of the USDA loan, the partner has to be a nonprofit.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to go that way.
And also, I might throw out there that, there are some models nearby where a hospital and a long-term care facility are operating jointly. That's the case in Ray with Hillcrest and the hospital there. I don't know details, but it might be worth looking into. And also in Wallace County, fairly new long-term care facility in Sharon Springs. It's managed at some level. I don't know if it's leased or managed
It's
by the hospital and Tribune.
yes, it's a kind of a cooperative agreement between the two.
Kelly's not keen on that idea, but it is working other places.
Yeah. So, do you need a decision from us today to move forward?
We're scheduled to meet again this Wednesday, the task force, to kind of discuss what your impressions were and which direction. So I think to facilitate this process, we need at least, if you narrow it down to maybe, if you can't pick one of those three, if you could pick maybe two of the three, then we know which direction to.
Well, I think we're all in agreement here. The county really does not want to provide the management for this, or the employees. There's just no way the county can manage that at this time.
Right.
Not with the present budget.
And I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I don't know, it sounded like Good Sam didn't know if they want to be a part of the assisted living. Is that correct? And I would like to see the two of them move together.
Well, since it's all one property, I think it would.
I would need to have three entities: one Good Sam, another entity for the assisted living, and an entity for the hospital. It doesn't look good to me.
No, I agree with you. I think, I think looking at the apartments, it's really trying to make a long-term care, a continuum of care campus, so that whether individuals wanted to live independently at an apartment, in assisted living, or skilled nursing, there was kind of a transition of care that was available for residents of the county.
And that's what we kind of envisioned from the beginning.
Right.
Right, it's the intent that the RFP will be for the whole facility.
Sure.
Assisted living and the skilled.
So I guess that.
We're running out of time.
Exactly. That's why we're kind of.
But and where are we going to go if Good Sam says, no, we're not going to take care of the assisted living?
Well, Randy Fitzgerald, we had a conference call with him the last meeting, and he did indicate he would be willing, Good Samaritan would be willing to extend the present contract for a couple of months until we can.
6 months.
Yeah, we didn't set a specific date, but they're willing to go beyond their contract just to give us a time to make a decision, and hopefully the right one. Personally, I kind of like the local board of directors idea.
I do too.
Well, I think one of the things I see there is that we have some local input into future planning.
Yes.
Because that's always been an issue whenever you have a facility that's owned by anyone outside your community. You can't make long-term plans as to what you might do in regards to that particular facility. And that the fact that the assisted living is being added, I know things look pretty tough right now, but you have to realize that we're going through a remodeling process. It was downsized, and the Good Samaritan Society has been somewhat strapped that they had to maintain some extra space to move patients around, so they haven't been able to keep the census where they wanted it, and you've got the inconvenience of remodeling and workers and such up there. So it probably looks the worst. It looks pretty bleak right now, but once the assisted living is completed and up and running and the remodeling's done, we'll have a much better facility than we've ever had in Cheyenne County. And, and I think it's important that if we want the assisted living to hit the ground running and possibly get it out of the red and into the black, we almost need to have a waiting list of people that are waiting to get into that assisted living. And without right now, there's really nobody's under contract to do that. And so, that's why we need to probably be addressing that, and you need to be aware of it, that, that we need to be developing a waiting list and advertising and encouraging residents in Cheyenne County that would use assisted living to consider.
And I think that's another plus for having a local board, or a board made up of locals, that people can access, and people they know, the people they trust. I just think that's, to me, that's the way I'd like to see it go.
So then with your board, do you want a managed facility or a leased facility?
Well, I'd like the board to have at least some say in the day-to-day operation of that. And I don't know if they can fulfill that just being an advisory type board or not. I don't know. I don't know if we'd what the benefits would be from either one, really.
And I would say that probably the companies that we're going to send RFPs to probably have the option of either a lease or a management contract. If it's a leased contract, which would be what we have right now with Good Samaritan Society.
Asking for a proposal for both.
Well,
for these
that's what I'm indicating. We could say, give us a proposal as a leased contract and as a managed contract, and then we could see, what if it's a managed contract. That the county's going to have to cover any operating losses. If it's a lease contract, most lease contracts aren't set up that way, but in a situation that we're in, and if Good Sam has already told us that to renew the lease, there's got to be a subsidy clause in that contract. It's very likely that other companies are going to ask for the same thing. It may be what specifically they're ready to subsidize and what the provisions are, what the leasing company has to do prior to asking for the subsidy, and that may be where the details of the contract may come down to. It would be what efforts have been taken by the leasing company before you ask for a subsidy in your management.
Well, I think let's move forward on that premises that, hey, let's go ahead and get these RFPs out, ask for both if they're able to provide both, and then we can make a decision after we read through those.
Do you have any input,
Yeah.
Rod?
No, I think you're on the right track. I think you need to get both of them, and I also think you already got a board. And so you take the present people that are serving on the task force here, that would make you a good board. And then plus the fact that I think all of us as taxpayers want is a little better accountability. Let's show us what it's actually cost us for the management costs and all the little misses that we don't know anything under the present contract. So I think it's absolutely I think you're making the best step right now. Let's find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And who's available.
Yeah. Let's move forward on that note.
And you would confirm the fact that we should negotiate with John Grace about a contract and maybe amend his existing contract with the county to include consulting on the management side of it.
I think so.
It's going to give us our best deal if we do that.
So it's better than trying to start over with somebody new, because the man's already familiar with the whole operations anyway, and we're familiar with him. There's a certain amount of trust there already built. So
yeah, and he very well could be one of the companies that would submit a response to an RFP. So as
I had
a,
a board member tell me that, and I don't know if this is correct or not, that the hospital is kind of a lease management deal. Is that correct? It's not.
right
really-
now, it's a leased hospital with, yeah. But I think they, 3 years ago, they looked at, sent out RFPs to other management and leasing companies and decided to stay with Great Plains, and I think they're in the same process right now this year.
And we do have a hospital board member here, so he can confirm all these things, which are true. So,
We currently are leased. However, in that lease negotiation they done approximately 3 years ago, they put some clauses in there that they do have a little bit more say than the previous lease. But we are currently seeking RFP, or they're in the process of sending out RFPs as well.
okay. Let's go that way.
Okay? Wednesday night at the hospital
This Wednesday,
boardroom, this Wednesday.
we are going to,
Wednesday, right? So what's this?
We've got our next meeting scheduled at the hospital basement in the boardroom at 7 o'clock.
okay,
The task
we should
force.
be back.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
All right, thank you,
The
Tom.
hospital or the clinic?
With the clinic basement, yeah, the hospital boardroom, yeah,
All right, Tom.
in the basement of the clinic.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ryan, you want to sneak in here?
I just kind of wanted to fill you guys in on the storm over the weekend. I did have a verbal declaration from the chair of county commission. We will need to sign an actual resolution for that, that I can then send in. Basically, we went ahead and declared it due to the weather forecast, and we kind of foreseeing that we may run into some issues, and that would help cover some costs if we needed to use state resources. That helps get some of that covered. Just for clarification, the National Guard was here. They did station here in St. Francis at the emergency building. That was not per our request. That was the state being proactive, and they went ahead and sent them out ahead of time. We did agree to let them station here. That part worked out fairly well, and we did actually end up using them a couple times throughout the night, Friday night. So that's why the declaration comes in clear. Kind of just as a reminder and education piece for everybody, all incidents remain local. So we do have to utilize local resources first and exhaust our local resources first before we can start requesting state resources. I know sometimes there's some confusion on that. Basically, when we file a declaration, we are saying that we are foreseeing we're going to reach that point, or we have reached that point, that our local resources are exhausted, thus we're needing state assistance. But you can't call in state assistance if you still have local resources, if that makes, because then that's where the funding gets kind of tricky. So the National Guard did leave us that note. If you guys want to take a look at that, that was in our box. So the Emergency Operations Center was activated Friday about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I left about 4 p.m. Saturday. Jimmy stayed a little bit longer and deactivated after that. So.
Well, from what I've seen and heard, you guys did a fantastic job, and we do appreciate it. And unfortunately, there were some bumps in there, but there always is. But overall, I think we come out of the whole storm pretty well.
And I don't know if it would be okay, but I would like about 5 minutes of executive session for non-elected personnel regarding that. So.
Okay. Hear a motion to? I'll second the motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Food and drink, what was that?
The Methodist Church.
No, you provided food and drinks.
Yeah, no alcohol.